It was October 30th, the night before Halloween, and the town of Maplewood was a tapestry of orange and gold. Pumpkins with crooked smiles sat on every porch, their candlelit eyes watching as costumed kids ran laughing down the streets. But for Ryan and Mia Carter, the festive air felt heavy. Their home was nestled right at the edge of the woods, the kind of place where the fog rolled in early, like a silent, creeping tide. Ryan was outside, the cool evening air biting at his cheeks as he latched the front gate. Inside, he could see Mia placing flickering candles in the windows, turning their home into a warm, glowing beacon against the encroaching dusk. As he turned back toward the porch, something caught his eye. A small, folded piece of paper tucked neatly under the base of a heavy iron candle holder. Curious, he picked it up. The handwriting was shaky, uneven, as if written by a trembling hand. He unfolded it and read the words aloud to Mia as he stepped inside. "Do not open the door after 3 a.m., no matter who knocks." Mia turned from the window, a soft laugh escaping her lips. "Oh, that's clever. Must be one of the neighbors trying to get a good scare in before Halloween." Ryan forced a smile, tucking the note into his pocket. "Yeah, probably," he said, pretending to agree. But a strange unease settled in his stomach. Something about those words felt less like a prank and more like a warning. The night wore on. They tried to shake off the feeling, falling into their Halloween traditions. They ate a simple dinner, the smell of roasted pumpkin seeds filling the kitchen. They put on an old radio station playing classic Halloween tunes. The crackling, cheerful music, a stark contrast to the growing silence outside. As the hours passed, the fog began its nightly assault. It crept across the yard, thick and white, swallowing the path to the gate, then the gate itself, until their house felt like an island in a milky sea. By 10:00 p.m., the usual sounds of the neighborhood had vanished. No more children's laughter, no more distant voices. There was only the sound of the wind, brushing its cold fingers against the window panes. Ryan peered outside, his breath fogging the glass. The fog had become a solid wall, so dense that the streetlights were just faint, fuzzy orange blurs. Mia came up behind him, wrapping her arms around his shoulders. "Spooky, isn't it?" she whispered, her voice close to his ear. He nodded slowly, his eyes still fixed on the impenetrable white. "Yeah, a little too perfect." They decided to call it a night, turning off the lights one by one until the only illumination came from the pumpkins on the porch. Their flickering faces cast dancing shadows, looking like tiny, watchful eyes in the mist. As they settled into bed, the house grew quiet, wrapped in the thick, sound-dampening blanket of the fog. It was 2:45 a.m. when a faint sound pulled Ryan from a restless sleep. Tap. 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 He sat bolt upright, his heart instantly hammering against his ribs. He strained his ears, listening to the suffocating darkness of the hallway. It came from downstairs. He glanced at the red glow of the alarm clock. Tap, tap, tap. This time it was slower, more deliberate, closer. With a deep, shaky breath, he slid out of bed, careful not to wake Mia. The tapping grew clearer as he approached the front door. He peered through the small, fogged glass pane. A shape, a faint, blurry outline of a figure was standing on their porch. It wasn't moving. It wasn't knocking again. It was just standing there. His voice was barely a whisper. "Hello?" No answer, only the muffled sound of the wind. He glanced at his watch, the glowing hands showing 2:59 a.m. 1 minute until 3. The note. The words screamed in his mind. "Do not open the door after 3:00 a.m. The porch light, which they'd left on, flickered erratically, and then a new sound. A whisper, right from the other side of the door, so close it felt like it was in his own head. "Trick or treat." Ryan froze, his blood turning to ice. His throat was so dry he couldn't swallow. The whisper came again, louder this time, drawn out and slow, like a distorted recording. "Trick or treat. From upstairs, Mia's voice drifted down, heavy with sleep. "Ryan, who's there?" He couldn't answer. His gaze was locked on the door, his mind racing. The clock in the hall clicked over. A single, final chime. 3:00 a.m. The whispering stopped. The shape behind the glass was gone. For a long moment, Ryan just stood there, completely still, the silence pressing in on his eardrums. He finally let out a long, shuddering breath, a wave of relief washing over him. He had listened. He hadn't opened it. He turned away from the door, his legs feeling weak, and that's when he saw it. Something slid silently from under the door, coming to a stop on the welcome mat. Another folded piece of paper. With a hand that trembled violently, he bent down and picked it up. It was the same shaky handwriting. But this time, the message was different. It read, "You opened it last year." His hand went slack and the note fluttered to the floor. A single name escaped his lips. A horrified whisper. "Mia." From the top of the stairs, her voice came again, but it wasn't sleepy anymore. It was a cold, familiar whisper. Trick or treat. The last candle on the entryway table flickered, sputtered, and went out, plunging the house into absolute darkness. And on the wall, the old grandfather clock stopped ticking. The candlelight flickered faintly in the living room, casting long, dancing shadows that seemed to mock the stillness. I stood frozen by the door, the note clutched in my shaking hand. "You opened it last year." 5 simple words, yet they echoed in my mind like a death knell. I whispered her name, Mia, but only silence answered. The house felt unnaturally quiet, holding its breath. And then, from upstairs, a faint whisper drifted down, chilling me to the bone. The same phrase, repeating slowly, methodically. Trick or treat. My heart pounded against my ribs as I forced my feet to move, one step at a time, up the creaking staircase. Each groan of the old wood was a drumbeat counting down to something terrible. At the top of the stairs, the hallway stretched into an inky blackness. The door to our bedroom was ajar, a sliver of deeper darkness within. The air inside felt heavy, thick with a stillness that felt alive. "Mia," I whispered again, my voice barely a croak. Her voice, when it came, was soft but warped, laced with an eerie calm. "You remember last year, don't you, Ryan?" It was Mia's voice, but it wasn't Mia. I pushed the door open, my hand trembling. The room was empty. The bed was neatly made, untouched. But across the surface of the large vanity mirror, something was traced in the thin fog of what looked like breath. "You shouldn't have opened it." As I read the words, the lights flickered violently. For a split second, the reflection in the mirror warped. I saw myself, still standing at the door, but older, worn down, exhausted, yet wearing the exact same clothes. And just behind my reflected self, a shape lurked in the shadows, tall and undefined. I stumbled back, gasping. The fog on the mirror vanished as quickly as it had appeared, and the reflection returned to normal. Almost. Except my reflection was still smiling. A wide, predatory grin that didn't reach its eyes. I scrambled away, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and rushed back downstairs. The note I had dropped lay on the floor, now slightly damp from a strange fog seeping in through the window frames. I fumbled for my phone, desperate for a connection to the outside world. No signal. Of course, my eyes shot to the clock on the wall. It was frozen. 3 a.m., the witching hour. Suddenly, the pumpkins I'd set on the porch blazed to life, their orange glow flooding the living room. But their carved faces were different now, twisted. Each one's mouth was stretched open in a silent, agonizing scream. The fog outside pulsed with that same sickly orange light, like the whole world was on fire just beyond my windows. And then, a memory surfaced, breaking through the panic like a shard of glass. Last Halloween, Mia had been out of town visiting her sister. I was alone. I remembered watching some old horror movie, dozing off on the couch, until a knock came at the door. 3 soft, polite knocks, and I, half asleep and thinking it was a late trick-or-treater, had opened it. I strained to remember what I'd seen, who had been standing there, but the memory was smoke, slipping through my fingers the harder I tried to grasp it. All I could recall was waking up the next morning, stiff and cold on the couch. The front door was wide open, swinging gently in the morning breeze, and all my porch lanterns were burnt out, their glass cracked. Now, exactly 1 year later, that same unholy light was burning again. I forced myself to look out the window, peering through the swirling, orange-tinted fog, and I saw her. A figure standing by the front gate. The same height, the same slender outline as Mia. "Mia?" I whispered, pressing my hand against the cold glass. She didn't move, didn't respond. Her head just tilted to the side, a slow, unnatural motion, as if she were listening to something I couldn't hear. Then she smiled. It was a soft, empty smile that didn't reach her eyes. Slowly, she raised her hand. She was holding a lantern, one of mine from last year, glowing with a deep, pulsating orange light. As it flickered, I saw a reflection in its glass panels, my own terrified face. And standing directly behind me, a towering dark shadow, its formless head moving closer and closer. I spun around, my heart seizing in my chest. There was nothing there. Just the empty hallway, the overhead light swinging slowly as if someone had just brushed past it. And then the doorbell rang. 3 slow, deliberate chimes that echoed through the silent house. A whisper followed, seeming to come from right outside the door, calm and chillingly familiar. "Ryan, you promised you'd never open it again." My back hit the wall. "Mia, please, where are you?" I begged, my voice cracking. The porch light blinked twice in response, and from the other side of the door, her voice answered, clear as day. "Right here." The sound of the doorknob turning sent a wave of ice through my veins. The lock clicked once, and then stopped. The whisper came one last time, not from the door, but from right beside my ear, a cold breath against my skin, though no one stood there. Trick or treat? The candle on the end table beside me blew out, plunging the room into darkness, and in the oppressive silence, I heard a sound I'd been dreading. The clock on the wall started ticking again. Thank you so much for joining me for this spooky story. I hope it gave you a good chill. If you enjoyed it, please hit that like button, and do not forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next descent into the dark. Stay safe out there, and see you next time. Halloween night was supposed to be over. The trick-or-treaters had long since vanished, and the street outside my window was a silent, inky black. Every house had gone dark, except for mine. Inside, the pumpkins on the porch still burned, their orange light pulsing with a life that refused to die. The clock on the wall read 2:58 a.m. For the last hour, I'd been glued to the same spot, staring at the front door. The brass handle kept twitching, just a little, but enough to make my skin crawl. And then there was the sound. A soft, wet sound, like someone was pressing their face against the wood, breathing. My wife, Mia, had gone to bed hours ago. We'd had a quiet Halloween dinner, just the two of us. I remember her smiling at me as she blew out the last candle, its light flickering out and leaving us in the warm darkness. But now those same candles were glowing again. Not brightly, but with a faint, ghostly light, as if the very air in the room was holding its breath, trying to keep me awake. That's when I heard the whisper. It was soft, hollow, and so close it felt like it was inside my own head. "Don't open it, Ryan." I froze, my heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. The voice. It was Mia's, but she was upstairs, fast asleep. I knew she was. Slowly, against every screaming instinct, I turned back toward the door. There's a small, decorative glass window set into the wood. Through it, I saw movement. At first, it was just a shadow, a distortion in the night, but then it sharpened into the faint outline of a face. My blood ran cold. This wasn't human. Its eyes glowed with a faint blue light. For a wild second, I thought it was just a reflection from the porch light. But the porch light was off. I'd turned it off myself. I stumbled back, my foot catching on the rug. The grandfather clock in the hall began to chime. 3 o'clock. As the final deep bong echoed through the house, the front door creaked. It wasn't the wind. The sound was low and rhythmic, almost like a slow exhale. The house was breathing. "You shouldn't be awake," the whisper came again. This time, it was directly behind me. I spun around, my fists clenched, ready to face whatever was there. Nothing. Just an empty living room, shadows clinging to the furniture. Then I heard it. A new sound coming from upstairs. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, barefoot steps moving across the old wooden floor of our bedroom. "Mia!" I called out, my voice cracking. There was no answer, only that steady, unnerving pacing, back and forth, right above my head. And then everything went black. The power cut out with a sudden final click. The house plunged into a darkness so absolute it felt like I'd been buried alive. Outside, the pumpkins on the porch went out, one by one, their orange glow winking out of existence until only a single, defiant jack-o'-lantern remained, its carved smile glowing faintly through the window. My hands trembled as I fumbled for the emergency matches and lit a candle. The tiny flame threw long, dancing shadows that seemed to mock me. Clutching the candlestick, I started up the stairs. Each creak of the old wood was louder than my own frantic heartbeat. When I reached the top of the landing, I saw that our bedroom door was ajar, swaying gently as if someone had just passed through it. I pushed it open. The candlelight washed over the room. Mia was there. She was sitting bolt upright in the middle of the bed, her face a pale mask in the gloom. Her eyes were wide with terror, but she wasn't looking at me. She was staring at a point in the air, just over my shoulder. "Ryan," she whispered, her voice trembling so hard I could barely understand her. It's standing right next to you." I whipped around, my heart seizing in my chest. There was nothing, just the cold, empty air of the hallway. But then, my eyes caught a reflection in the full-length mirror at the end of the hall, and I saw it. A figure stood directly behind me. It was tall and unnaturally thin, dressed in dark, tattered clothes. But its head was a cracked, rotting pumpkin with empty sockets that seemed to stare right through me. As I watched, frozen in horror, it slowly raised a long, skeletal hand and pointed. It was pointing down the stairs, toward the front door. The whisper returned, but now it was a low, echoing rumble that filled the entire house. "Open it, Ryan. Let Halloween finish what it started." The candle flame in my hand flickered violently, almost going out. Mia screamed, a raw, piercing sound that shattered the silence. That scream broke the spell. I grabbed her hand, pulling her off the bed and out of the room. At that exact moment, a sound like a gunshot echoed through the house. The hallway mirror shattered, then the one in the bathroom. One by one, every mirror in the house exploded, the fragments of glass flickering with the reflections of hundreds of grinning, nightmarish pumpkin faces. We scrambled down the stairs, stumbling in the dark, heading for the only escape. The front door. I had to get us out. As we reached the bottom, I risked one last glance through the small window in the door, trying to see what was waiting for us on the porch. What I saw stopped me dead. I was looking at my own house, from the outside. And there, standing on the porch, was me. My own reflection, my own face was staring back. It was knocking patiently on the door. As I watched, its lips curved into a chilling smile and a final whisper slithered through the wood directly into my ear. "You already opened it." The candle in my hand went out. The world dissolved into absolute silence. And then, all at once, the pumpkins outside reignited, their orange glow burning brighter and more fiercely than ever before. Halloween wasn't over. It was just starting again. Thank you so much for joining me for this terrifying tale. If you enjoyed getting your dose of dread, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more spooky stories. Stay safe and check your locks. The clock struck 3. The sound echoed through the quiet house, a heartbeat that wasn't Ryan's. Every tick seemed slower than the last, stretching time until it felt brittle, ready to snap. The air had changed. It was heavier now, colder, and thick with a strange, expectant silence. Ryan stood frozen near the door, his eyes locked on the handle. It twitched again. Not a loud, violent rattle, but a quiet, steady jiggle, as if someone on the other side knew he was listening, waiting. He found his voice, though it was barely a whisper. "Who's there?" The only reply was silence, but it was a silence that felt alive, watching. The single candle on the table trembled, its flame bending impossibly toward the door, drawn by an unseen force. Then, a sound from upstairs. The floor creaked, a familiar groan of old wood settling. But what followed was not familiar. It was soft humming, the tune of an old lullaby, a tune he knew too well. "Mia," he called out, his voice shaking now, betraying the fear he was trying so hard to suppress. The humming stopped instantly. For a terrifying second, it felt like the entire house was holding its breath, listening along with him. Then a flicker of movement caught his eye. The large, ornate mirror by the staircase. Ryan's reflection wasn't moving with him anymore. It stood perfectly still, its gaze fixed on the front door. Slowly, its mouth began to move, forming silent words he couldn't hear, couldn't understand. The air filled with the scent of candle smoke and something else, something metallic, like old blood or rusted iron. He turned away, covering his face, a primal urge to not see what was happening. But the reflection kept whispering. Faster now, its silent movements growing more frantic as if it was trying desperately to warn him. Then, a knock. Soft, almost polite, it echoed from the door. Once, twice, then a third, final knock. It hung in the silence like a question waiting for an answer. Ryan's body tensed, every muscle screaming at him to run, to hide. But something pulled him forward. He stepped closer, one hand reaching for the brass lock, the other holding the trembling candle aloft. The glass pane on the upper half of the door was fogged with his breath, or maybe something else. Behind it, a faint shadow moved, tall, still, and unblinking. He whispered, the words catching in his throat. "What do you want?" The voice that answered from the other side was not human. It wasn't a growl or a hiss. It was his own voice, a perfect mimicry, repeating his question back to him. "What do you want?" Ryan stumbled back, his heart slamming against his ribs. In that instant, every candle in the room flickered in unison, their flames all bending toward the door in a desperate, silent plea. He glanced up at the grandfather clock. 3:15 a.m. The second hand wasn't moving anymore. It was frozen. He looked back at the mirror. His reflection was fading, dissolving like smoke until only the barest outline of his face remained. And behind it, another figure was appearing in the glass. It looked like Mia, but not quite. Her expression was blank, her eyes glowing faintly with the same orange light as the pumpkins outside. "Ryan," she said softly, her voice kind but hollow, echoing as if from a great distance. "Don't open it." Her words were a lifeline. He turned, ready to run toward her, toward the staircase, toward anywhere but that door. But when he looked back, it was too late. The door was already open. It hadn't creaked or swung. It was just open. A cold, damp wind rushed through the room, extinguishing every candle, plunging him into absolute darkness. The smell of wet leaves and cold earth filled his lungs. "Where are you?" Ryan whispered into the void, his voice trembling uncontrollably. From right behind him, Mia's voice answered again, calm and gentle. "Right where you left me." He spun around, his hands outstretched, but there was nothing. Only a faint fog, coiling and swirling, filling the room. And through the fog, he could see them. Shadows of trick-or-treaters, their forms indistinct, walking past the open doorway. They carried lanterns that cast long, dancing shadows, and their whispered voices drifted in on the wind. It's still Halloween. The grandfather clock began ticking again. Only this time, it was ticking backward. 3 Narig, 2 He59, 2 Kiti58. The night was resetting. The loop was starting over. Ryan looked at the mirror one last time. His reflection was solid again. It smiled at him, a slow, knowing smile that didn't reach its eyes. And it whispered, the words finally clear, "You opened the door. Now, it never closes." Outside, every house on the street, which had been dark moments before, lit up again with Halloween lights. Jack-o'-lanterns glowed with renewed malice on every porch. The fog thickened, blanketing the world in a ghostly shroud. And somewhere in the dark, from his own front door, the knocking started all over again. Once, twice, 3 times, waiting for an answer he was now forced to give forever.